And welcome on in to your Tuesday, October 14th. By the way, Charlie Kirk Day of Remembrance is today. Charlie would have been 32 years old today. And he is going to be getting the Presidential Medal of Freedom, of course, obviously posthumously. But Charlie Kirk, of course, one of the things that clearly has happened after his assassination, a couple of things have happened. Number one, his message has become incredibly magnified. And I love the fact that his message is out there more than ever before. So that's number one. A lot of people who had never heard of Charlie Kirk are now ardent followers of his social media because there's a lot of great videos. Remember the day that he was assassinated, the next day when I came on the air, I said that, you know, how you can remember Charlie Kirk is to make sure that other people discover Charlie Kirk. And that is indeed what has happened. So Turning Point USA, of course, there is a lot of talk, a lot of discussion about all of the chapters that were opening up all across the country. I love that as well. Have you seen this? So we all know that Bad Bunny is going to be playing the Super Bowl halftime show. Did you hear what Mike Johnson said, by the way? Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, said that, well, you know, really the Super Bowl people, they probably should have gotten someone, you know, a little bit more, I think he said something, and I'm paraphrasing, someone a little more mainstream or someone maybe a little bit more popular than Bad Bunny. Like, for example, Lee Greenwood is what he said. So, of course, people automatically go to Spotify. And they will note that on Spotify, Bad Bunny has 79 million followers or subscribers, whatever they do on Spotify. Lee Greenwood, who I love, 400,000. Mike Johnson, please stop talking. I'm going to get his spirit, and I totally agree with him. But I think that, you know what Amy said to me yesterday? And then I'm going to move on. Amy said, Dan, it's about time that... And she put herself in this category. So it wasn't just me. You've got to understand that when it comes to pop culture kind of stuff, you and I, she said, are out of the mainstream. And I said, you know what? I'm okay with that, as a matter of fact. Because I've seen what's in the mainstream, and I know I sound like a get off my lawn kind of guy. But if it means that I'm not going to be accepting of a halftime Super Bowl performance with a dude that does nothing but sing the songs in Spanish,
and apparently not very good Spanish, according to some of my Hispanic friends,
then I'm okay with being out of the mainstream. But you know who MAGA, and again, they keep putting all MAGA as this one big block, but MAGA outrage, fans launch a petition for a country music legend to replace Bad Bunny in a Super Bowl halftime show amid MAGA outrage. Okay, so do you know the story, Sam?
I do not.
Joan, do you know the story? Don't Google it, Joan.
Oh, okay, I won't. That's
what Joan does. She knows what I'm talking about, and then she starts Googling stuff. Can you guess who that Super Bowl, who's the country legend that MAGA wants in the Super Bowl?
George Strait.
Did you Google that?
No, I just guessed it.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah, serious?
All right, Joan, is your guess George Strait too?
I would have said Dolly Parton.
I actually would have liked Dolly Parton more. But I love the fact that MAGA would love George Strait. I think George Strait would be great. I'm here to tell you, friends, I love every single one of you, but there's no chance in HE double toothpicks that they are going to replace Bad Bunny with George Strait. Now, I don't know, have they come up with, and then I'm going to move on, but has Turning Point USA, Joan, have they come up with who's going to be playing at their version of a halftime show? Because remember,
I checked, yeah, they have said that they haven't determined who would be.
There was a list that I saw floated, and on said list was, of course, you know, Kid Rock, John Rich, our friend John Rich. But I don't know if that was, because there's so much stuff on social media, you don't really know what's real and what's not. But Amy and I were throwing around the name Morgan Wallen. I don't think Morgan Wallen, but see, here's the thing. I don't think Morgan Wallen would do it because he shows he shows flashes or hints of being a conservative, but he's never actually come out and said, I am a conservative. I don't think that he has anyway. And so I think for Morgan Wallen, that would perhaps anyway be far too much of a, planting a flag on the right side. I just don't think that he wants to be that political. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but they do need somebody who is huge. And Amy and I spoke about maybe Snoop Dogg, but I don't think Snoop Dogg
for
would.
Turning Point.
Yeah, for Turning Point. And Snoop Dogg wouldn't. I mean, those Snoop Dogg and Turning Point, they would not. They don't blend well together. I don't think.
Yeah, if the Super Bowl committee is not going to build a mock-up balcony for Morgan Wallen to throw a chair off of, I don't think Turning Point would allow Snoop Dogg to spark up some of his signature herb.
So anyway, I think that they're trying to figure out who is going to be.
By the way, there is there's a fake poster out that shows who's going to be in the lineup for the halftime show, and it says Ted Nugent, Travis Tritt, Jason Aldean, but they have not announced it yet, so don't be fooled by that poster.
See, Joan, that's what I was saying. You don't know what's real anymore,
right?
Like you stroll down, and then I'm going to get to my stuff, but you go on Facebook. There are so many different stories on Facebook that are AI written, and you're like. When all of these started coming out, I started really being drawn into these stories only to realize they're not true.
Right.
They're not true. So I don't even know what's real and what's fake anymore on the socials. But I would love that's why I'm, out of the mainstream, because I would love to see George Strait and others, George Strait and others, who, if you could pick one artist, Joan, you first, if you could pick one artist to play the Super Bowl halftime show via Turning Point on YouTube, who would your artist be?
I think I'd like to see John Rich.
John Rich. All right. How about you, Sam?
The Red Clay Strays.
Okay. Thanks for playing along, Sam. I've never heard of them, so...
because you're not mainstream, but it's a band I've kind of... thrown
Is that
some songs.
band mainstream? Come on.
Well, they're growing in popularity, but they put out this song called "People Hatin'." It's their response to Charlie Kirk's assassination.
Oh, okay,
and they are as neutral about it. They're just saying, "People, stop all this hating," and the liberals are just coming after them over it.
Okay, you know what? Cue up the core lyrics for that song. We'll do that a little bit later on. Mine would be a Morgan Wallen. Because I just think that would just be a big poke in the eye to, the folks on the left.
Would you be getting rowdy if Morgan Wallen was throwing down a halftime show?
Would I get rowdy?
Yeah, we see Dan fist pumping the songs and stuff.
Sure. I'd be raising the roof and all that. Sure, absolutely. Bill Clinton, by the way, very quickly, has chimed in on the epic response to Donald Trump getting the hostages released. Former President Bill Clinton praising President Trump for his administration's efforts in brokering the Israel-Hamas ceasefire, saying the president and regional partners deserve great credit for keeping negotiations on track. He went on to say the horrors of the October 7th attack on Israel and the conflict they reignited have resulted in unbearable human loss. Clinton wrote, "It's been hard to watch and nearly impossible to rationalize." He says, "I'm grateful that a ceasefire has taken hold, that the last 20 hostages have been freed, and that desperately needed aid has begun to flow into Gaza." Former President Bill Clinton continued, "President Trump and his administration, Qatar, and other regional actors deserve great credit for keeping everyone engaged until the agreement was reached." Now, in the 5 o'clock hour, I was talking about how, and I'm not going to redo that segment, but in the 5 o'clock hour, I was telling you about how you had Antony Blinken, Joe Biden's Secretary of State, and whoever handles Joe Biden's social media. They were trying to take credit, at least some of the credit, for what Donald Trump did, which is complete bogus, bovine scatology, as old Uncle Phil used to say, complete and utter BS. But you know what? When your administration, here's what I would say about that. When your administration has absolutely nothing to brag about, then you try to glom onto the accomplishments of others, including Donald Trump. This was really interesting. And I love this moment. There is a moment, and this was yesterday with Scott Jennings, and he's on CNN, and it was a big moment for him because since the hostages were taken way back when, he has been wearing an American Eagle pin. Scott Jennings, of course, everybody likes Scott Jennings. And so yesterday, he was actually able to now take that pin off because the hostages have been released. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, you can see this, but you can certainly hear it on the radio as well. This was that great moment for Scott Jennings and all Americans and Israelis as well. Scott Jennings.
I've been wearing this pin for 2 straight years, waiting for these hostages to come home. And I've been waiting to take it off. And I'm going to take it off tonight because the 20 people came out. And I met some of the families earlier this year, and I've been following their stories quite closely. And I'm going to replace it with an American pin, American flag pin, because in my opinion, this was a huge victory for the American people, led by our president.
Yes.
But it was only through the power and the force of will of the President of the United States that 20 people returned to their families, that we have the beginnings of the possibility of a peaceful era in the Middle East, and that maybe a future can be had by millions upon millions of people in a place where it's sometimes hard to visualize a future. And so I couldn't be prouder to be an American tonight, because without the United States and without our president, this doesn't happen.
I mean, honestly, the whole Lee Greenwood, proud to be an American, I mean, that really does, that really is appropriate today. And I love what Scott Jennings said. And you'll notice that, and I don't know the rest of the conversation that was had, but you notice all of these leftists were just ready to jump in and start arguing with Scott Jennings. But you know what what he said really does ring true. When he said that Donald Trump really, it was the force of this man's will. I mean, he really did. You know, Donald Trump, who was it? I can't remember now. Somebody described Donald Trump as just a force of nature, because he really did go in. If you think about it, he has really been, and this is peace through strength. This is what peace through strength is all about. This is peace through strength personified. Because the president has now, as you know, ended 8 conflicts, 8 wars, including one of the most horrific battles we've seen in generations, Israel and Hamas. And President Trump, I was texting back and forth with my liberal friend, and one of the things that he said is, the crazy SOB was able to get it done. And I like what Scott Jennings said, because for, my liberal friend to actually acknowledge, even though he said the crazy SOB got it done, I think he actually meant it in sort of a affectionate kind of a way. And now apparently Sam was telling me earlier, was it the leader of Pakistan has now nominated President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, whatever.
The prime minister, yeah.
Oh, did you see? I think this was buried in the news. The woman out of Venezuela who
won the Nobel Peace Prize.
Won the Nobel Peace Prize dedicated to President Trump.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. You want to talk about, a poke in the eye to the Nobel Peace Prize people? I absolutely loved that. And I'll see if I can dig up the audio. I forget the woman's name. But, I mean, she was spot on. I love the fact that she called out the Nobel Peace Prize people. By the way, the president did give an amazing speech yesterday. Of course, we carried that speech in its entirety from Israel's parliament. I think we carried most of Benjamin Netanyahu's speech as well yesterday. After that, he went to Egypt. I've got a couple of sound bites from that, and also what is next in the the peace deal Where are we right now with the bodies? We've got 24 bodies of Israeli hostages that have yet to be returned. We're going to talk about that as well. We do have a lot going on. Also, in all of the madness of the news cycle, Joe, did you see the back and forth with Hakeem Jeffries and Jeff Lawler?
Yes, I did.
Did you see that?
I did.
I don't know.
This was last week, right?
This was last week.
When they met in the hallway.
I totally missed this.
Ah.
But I'm going to play a couple of, it was like a 5-minute, back and forth. But you see how Jeffries is I'm going to do this in the next segment in the 6:35 to 7. Did you see how Jeffries is trying to act all tough?
Yes. Yes.
And he lied. He lied through his teeth about one of the things that he said regarding the Republicans. We're going to get into, some non-Israel news as well coming up here at 6:35. By the way, just to let you know where we are going today, Sheriff Chris Daniels out of Humphreys County, he is going to be joining us at 7:35. Chris Davis coming up at 7:35, going to talk about what is going on there at really ground zero in Bucksnort and that investigation as it does continue. Can somebody please tell Barack Obama to shut the hell up? So this headline I'm seeing, what's that, Joan?
Well, all right, if we have to.
Obama says that Americans are being tested right now because of Donald Trump. Whatever, man. I'm in a good mood today, Joan. I don't know if you can tell. I'm in a great mood. I'm not going to let Obama bring me down. Not going to allow it, man. What you were talking about Sheriff Chris Davis, Humphreys County Sheriff. And he was talking about some fake news in your newscast. I missed it. What was he talking about? Because I'm gonna interview him coming up at 7:35. I got to make sure I don't ask him anything fake news related. So he said that people are sharing fake news about the cause of the AES blast. Did he elaborate? He did not. Oh. That was during yesterday's press conference. He said this. So you may ask him about that. You know what? Maybe I will. What is fake news? Because I think people legit want to know if it was terrorism. Absolutely. I will say this, is that on 4chan, because I got people sending me stuff on 4chan. Where, what they like to do on 4chan is they like to start theories and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And they like to be like, hey, hold my beer. Watch this. I'm going to make this rumor or whatever it is go viral. That's what 4chan does. Mm-hmm. People are saying that because America supplies arms to Ukraine, that it was the Russians, I guess. So, whatever. I mean, here's the deal, is that through our Department of Defense, yes, we supply arms, munitions to Ukraine. We have been doing that for years. But I don't know. I don't think that anything should be off the table. I mean, as far as the investigation goes. So I'll ask him what he meant by that, by the fake news. So here it is on on News 2. Yes. Davis said officials wanted to reiterate that the investigation is still underway. No determination of cause has been publicly released. Mm-hmm. As such, Davis called for people to stop sharing what he called fake news on social media as agencies coordinate to get answers. I want to know what the fake news is. I should get him on. I'm going to say, hey, Sheriff, is it true that Ukraine or the Russians were behind this because of our support for Ukraine? And just watch him launch. But I don't think he's in a mood to, I don't think you should do that. No, I'm not going to do that. He actually, apparently, he is right there in the thick of all of this. And, I don't know if you've ever been in that kind of a situation, Joan, but when you are around that much death and destruction, it really does have an impact on you. And because you're dealing with families that have lost everything, you're dealing obviously with a company that is, dealing with the loss of all of those employees and the loss of their building as well, possible lawsuits. I mean, lives are ruined. Families are ruined. And so, I mean, I'm really looking, I've been trying to get Sheriff Davis for a couple of days now. So I'm really looking forward to speaking to him about all of this. And that is going to come up, by the way, at 7:35 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So I've been red-pilled, Joan. You
You have?
Yeah, because people are talking about this band that Sam mentioned earlier. We're talking just very quickly about the turning point, because remember, today is Charlie Kirk Day of Remembrance. And Turning Point wants to have their own Super Bowl halftime show because you've got big, what is it, Big Bunny?
Bad Bunny.
You got Bad Bunny over there on the network. So Turning Point wants to do their own, and I said I would love to see Morgan Wallen do his thing. And there's a big story out there today where MAGA, air quoting, MAGA wants to bring in George Strait. And then you mentioned a band, Sam, and the band was?
The Red Clay Strays.
The Red Clay Strays. And I, of course, have never heard of them. And I mock Sam for being like, can you have somebody a little bit more mainstream, Sam? Well, apparently I'm the one that has no clue as to what is mainstream because people on the super text line, Joan, lit me up.
Yeah, they're blowing up out of Mobile, Alabama, bringing back a kind of Western, Southern rock. They're very faith-based.
Yes.
In everything that they write, and their lead singer is a phenomenal human being and a phenomenal singer, if I can get the word out.
And you said he was on Rogan.
He was on Rogan a couple of weeks ago and opened up about his faith and how it drives him and in the writing process. And, he feels like he's not just up there to perform, but to give a message to people. And a lot of his songs have gotten me through, their songs got me through some tough times. But they put this song out called People Hatin'. And it's their Charlie Kirk song. And the left is just tearing them apart over it for whatever reason. They're upset at this.
Mostly sunny today, pleasant, high of 80 degrees. Appreciate you listening to Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk. Need some video if I could. This is Donald Trump yesterday in Egypt.
This is the day that people across the region and around the world have been working, striving, hoping, and praying for. They have done things over the last month that I think were really unthinkable. Nobody thought this could happen. With the historic agreement we've just signed, those prayers of millions have finally been answered. As you know, the hostages have been returned, and further work goes on having to do with the, sadly to say, bodies.
Yeah.
Together we've achieved what everybody said was impossible. At long last, we have peace in the Middle East, and it's a very simple expression, peace in the Middle East, and we've heard it for many years, but nobody thought it could ever get there, and now we're there.
Yeah, that is President Trump. And again, as I say, a great speech from Egypt. And, the sad truth is there still is a lot that needs to be done. Remember, though, that everybody understood that there's a lot to be done. This is a situation where, this is many, many, many years in the making, and nobody said that this was going to be easy. There's still some things that Hamas has to do, and there's still some things, obviously, that need to get done. But think about the peace plan. We've all been talking about it. Gaza does indeed have to be de-radicalized. Gaza needs to be redeveloped. Hamas has to release the hostages, obviously the remains of those hostages. That's what Donald Trump was talking about. I think there's 24. Joan, is that the number you still have, 24? There's 24 bodies that have yet to be returned.
That's correct.
And so for the president and for Israel, there is still a lot that needs to be done. There's got to be some full aid sent into Gaza. The rebuilding has to, of course, begin. They need to create a Gaza economic zone so that they're going to be able to sustain themselves as a region. Hamas has agreed to step aside, but here's the thing. Doesn't look like they are. Yesterday we spoke about the brewing civil war that is percolating there in Gaza. You've got all of these different factions that are there, and with Israel pulling out, that means that there is a power vacuum. So which of these terrorist organizations will ultimately end up running or ruling Gaza? Hamas is, driving around in their trucks and they're shooting people and they're arresting people who they believe was working with Israel. They're not even supposed to be there. So I will say that there is still a lot of work that needs to be done. Here's more from Donald Trump.
Today, for the first time anyone can remember, we have a once-in-a-lifetime chance to put the old feuds and bitter hatreds behind us. And that's why so many people in this room, they didn't get along. Some did, some didn't, but they're getting along now. This has brought the people together. This is the first time the Middle East crisis has brought people together as opposed to driving them apart. And to declare that our future will not be ruled by the fights of the generations past, which is foolish. So together, let us continue in the spirit of cooperation and goodwill that has finally brought us to this incredible, historic breakthrough. If we do together, we will reach the Middle East's incredible destiny, a safe and prosperous and beautiful crossroads of culture and commerce, faith in humanity and geographic center. This will be the geographic center of the world.
So one of the things that, and we had a Daily Dan poll yesterday, did we wrap up with about 80-20? The question was, do you believe that peace will hold in the Middle East? And it was about 80-20. 80% of you folks on YouTube said, no, you're very skeptical. And I totally get it. I mean, one of the big problems, of course, is that, as I was just mentioning, you're going to have a lot of these different groups or organizations in Gaza, and there more than likely could be a civil war. We'll talk about that. You know, yesterday we had a guy named Daniel Fletch on from the Heritage Foundation on whether or not he thought that peace would hold in the Middle East. And so one big question that I did have was, how big of a deal is it that there are still those 24 or so bodies that have yet to be found? I believe that they were not negotiating in good faith, but I could be wrong.
So you're not wrong. I'd say the most important thing is the living hostages are home, because now Hamas has lost its most important leverage to forestall an Israeli military response should it choose and need to begin the war again, because Hamas would abrogate the terms of the deal. The fact that it cannot find all the remaining deceased hostages is actually a testament to the fact that it's not just Hamas that has held these hostages. There's other terrorist groups inside Gaza, including Islamic Jihad and the Popular Front for Liberation of Palestine, both of whom have held hostages. So Hamas isn't the only party here. They're obviously the most important and powerful one, but they're trying to locate the remains. And not to mention, as we've known of these last 2 years, Palestinians themselves, so-called ordinary Palestinians, including members or workers of the UN Relief Works Agency, the Refugee Agency for Palestinians, have held hostages. So locating them is very important. I think it is it's ongoing. It's been unclear exactly when the deadline was to release all of the dead hostages. It was 72 hours this morning for the living ones. But again, it's not going to prevent at least this phase one from being implemented.
Yeah, I think it was 72 hours for the remains as well. But talking about that brewing civil war among warring factions now roaming Gaza, you do have a few of these groups out there, including, of course, Hamas. The headline in the New York Post yesterday afternoon was that Hamas has now deployed 7,000 troops to cleanse Gaza as Palestinians scramble to fill that power vacuum that remains after Israel pulls back. Hamas, in a statement, claimed that it was, and this is a quote, imposing order and restoring security and stability following the ceasefire.
You're right. There's already over the weekend, we saw harrowing images and video. The mainstream media was not covering this, but of Hamas killing, arresting, and harming other Palestinians as they reassert control and show their dominance. It's also notable that Hamas somehow has found their uniforms again, and as they're patrolling the Gazan streets, they have their uniforms on, whereas when they're fighting the IDF, they somehow lose their uniforms. But there is a power vacuum. Hamas even said in response to the president's 20-point plan the other week, is that we will not relinquish control or at least be a party to governing Gaza going forward. So that's why this next phase 2 of the president's 20-point plan, it's really up in the air on what that looks like, because Hamas wants to be a part of Gaza going forward. Israel still retains it cannot be. That's why Israel will still retain some control of Gaza and have security operations if need be. But it remains to be seen for what the future of Gaza is. A lot will hopefully come out of this Sharm el-Sheikh meeting, but again, like I said earlier, I'm not holding my breath just yet.
Yeah, so right now there's a couple of really big issues. Of course, as I just mentioned, the return of the bodies and the potential for a civil war. Again, Hamas was supposed to be gone from the region. Clearly, it would appear that they are still there, and they are still exerting power. So we'll talk about what is coming up next in the region. And we'll continue to cover the release of the hostages. And again, as I just said, what is going to happen next for Gaza?